Today, you guys have sat through a lot of presentations, a lot of discussions about women and men who have built businesses, who have determined what their passions are, their values, and have stuck true to them in an authentic way as they've driven their careers forward. So what I thought I might do is literally spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes to tell you a story, to leave you all thinking about what you need to do for yourselves as you continue to build your vision for what you want to do going forward, your careers, whether it's in the private sector, the public sector, whether it's in a leadership capacity or part of a team. But the story I really wanted to share goes back to my early days. I've spent about 27 years on Wall Street, first 20 on Wall Street and the last 7 at Bloomberg. And the first half of my career, I spent most of my time on the trading floor. I was one of the few women on the trading floor. I was able to, hang out with the guys, go out and smoke cigars, play golf, do whatever I could to fit in. And I worked really hard at it, and I was quite successful. The problem was it wasn't really who I was. I wasn't really a cigar-smoking, golf-playing gal. I was someone who had much bigger passions and much bigger vision for the impact that I could make. And it was one day on the trading floor, I would go back to August 2001, when I got a call from the president, and it wasn't Dick Folt, but I'll talk about Dick in a second, but it was Joe Gregory. And I'll never forget, all he said to me was, "Ann, men run in packs, women don't. Go create your pack." And I'm like, okay, that sounds like an interesting set of marching orders. And I had no idea what he was really asking me to do, which was essentially in a company filled with mostly men in leadership positions. He really had a vision to create an organization in which women could flourish, women could move up through the organization, and really create more of a F-based organization, a more feminine culture that could thrive and flourish. And that was really the beginning of work that I did. So half the day I worked on the trading floor, and the other half I spent doing my volunteer job, building a network which ultimately became 4,000 women in 23 countries, which was called WIL, Women's Initiatives Leading Women. And it was probably one of the most proud accomplishments that I had, because it was really through this accomplishment that so much else has really happened. So I started the story 2001, flash forward to September 15th, 2008. And as many of you know, Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy. And it was really not only an awful day for the individuals in the company, but also obviously for it was cataclysmic for the world financial markets. And it was really when, of the 24,000 employees, we found out that about 10,000 of those employees would be acquired by Barclays Bank, and the other 15,000 employees would lose their jobs. So I happened to be actually one of the employees that was somewhat swept into Barclays, but only for a couple of weeks, to help transition the work that we had started. But I'll never forget the day that I packed up my belongings, put it in a box, walked out the door, as all of you saw in many of the magazines, and I went home. And while I was at home, it happened to be actually Halloween morning. It was October 31st. I sent my kids off to school. My daughter was 18 or 17 and a half, just got her driver's license. I dropped my son off at school, went back home, sitting in the kitchen, literally crying in my coffee, just not really knowing what was going to happen next. Literally had lost most of my financial net worth, had lost my job, and certainly didn't know what I was going to do next. At that moment, my entire house exploded. There was a physical explosion. And what happened was, I ran out to my garage where I heard the sound, and I see this truck coming through the side of my house. And just to give you a sense, my house is a pretty, decent-sized Georgian colonial red brick house. So I ran out the front door, I go to the driveway, and who do I see? But I see this GMAC kind of pickup truck with 3 young ladies sitting in the front seat, all looking at me in horror. One was wearing a policeman's outfit, which went about up to here with high heels. The other one was wearing a Gumby, and the third one was a plug. This was my daughter and her 2 best friends, who didn't know that I was home and had decided to cut school, and had lost control of the car by putting their UGG on the accelerator instead of on the brake. So at this point, fall to the ground in a pool of tears, a pool of despair, and I just have 3 young 17-year-olds looking at me, wondering what the heck was going to happen next. So I would not lie to you that this was probably the most despairing moment of my life and of my career. But what I would also tell you happened next is no lie either. The phone rang about an hour later as the police had come and the fire department came. They're wrapping my house in tape, and I had a reporter who thought this was a great story to tell. Woman loses job at Lehman Brothers and house gets, it starts to collapse to the ground. And essentially, I got a call from a woman that many of you may know, and her name is Melinda Wolf. And Melinda Wolf was my friend and colleague in helping to build diversity at Lehman Brothers, the women's network at Lehman Brothers. And she was checking in with me to see if I was going to join her to make calls for the Obama campaign, which we were all working hard on. And I said at that moment it wasn't really a good time for me to leave the house and go to the phone bank, but that I would really give her a buzz and see, I would let her know how things were going the next day. Well, the next day she called me and she said, Ann, I don't know what you're going to do next, but I just started at Bloomberg and I need some help, and I'd love you to come help me out. And that was really the opportunity for me to know that during the course of building our Will network, I also was able to connect with all of the women leaders at all the other investment banks on the street. And together we became a very close network of colleagues and friends and supporters. And it was through that network that ultimately I was able to pick myself back up. I started at Lehman Brothers, I started at Bloomberg about 2 months later and really hit the restart button on my career. And the reason I tell you this story, and I'm trying to hurry through it because there's many more fun and sordid details, was the fact that during the course of my career, there's one thing that I learned that ultimately will help every single one of us, which is the power of networks. And I know that was said earlier by one of our colleagues here. But building your networks internal to your organizations, external to your organizations, give to those networks, help them flourish, because ultimately it's those networks that are self-sustaining and come back and feed you. Even when you don't want to reach out and ask for help, they reach out and help you. So I had a longer prepared speech that I wanted to share with you all, but if I could just leave you with just 2 thoughts. One is, that moment of great despair when I fell to the ground in a puddle of tears with my house bricks falling all around me and in financial Armageddon. But ultimately, it really was the power of the women who I'd worked with to build something that we all felt so authentically passionate about, which was the advancement of women in the workplace and the advancement of one another in helping to sustain and support each other's careers. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Annalisa, because I know she wants to continue through the rest of this evening so we could get to the next part, which is some drinks.